Okay, good morning. I'm going to start with a quote. We belong to the future. We must put ourselves into it, each one at his station. We must not plant ourselves against the new and attempt to retain a beautiful world, one that must perish. Nor must we try to build with creative fantasy a new one that claims to be immune to the ravages of becoming. We have to formulate the nascent. It's Romano Guardini, Letters from Lake Como. In 1927, theologian and Jesuit priest Romano Guardini wrote a series of letters from Lake Como that presciently sought a path for humanity through the challenges and paradoxes of the modern age, one increasingly dominated by the machine and its ensuing homogenization. In their clear-sighted and even prophetic insights, these letters were instrumental to the work and convictions of architect Ludwig Mies van der Rohe, specifically in his pursuit of transcendent form through innovative means. The spiritual aspirations of Mies van der Rohe's architecture found full expression in advancing the frontiers of modern architecture, summarized by the architect in his assertion that, in his words, what is right and significant for any era, including the new era, is this: to give the spirit the opportunity for existence. Architecture and theology have this in common. Both seek to advance the frontiers between knowing and being. Architecture as an intellectual inquiry has found its ripest periods in history, and it gives form to what Le Corbusier deemed the ineffable, or the unsayable, dimension of human longing. Similarly, mature theological thought finds its fullness not merely in the printed word, but in the human sensorium, as expressed in art, architecture, and music. In the words of Pope Benedict, the two greatest arguments for the truth of Christianity are the lives of the saints and the art the church has produced. However, today, the frontiers of contemporary art, architecture, and theology are not fixed frameworks, especially as they converge in ecclesiastical form. Architecture historian Carla Cavera-Britton puts it this way: since late Roman times in the West, ecclesiastical form has traditionally emanated from the shared cultural narrative of Augustine's concept of the civitas Dei. Today, we can no longer assume such a commonly held ideal, neither within Christian tradition nor certainly within a pluralistic society that emphasizes the priority of the individual rather than a unifying experience of the sacred. How then is one to build a religiously meaningful work of architecture? Perhaps we find an answer in the letters of Romano Guardini. Perhaps today, as in the past, the priest and the architect have much to learn from each other. Dialogue is critical, as we can no longer rely on fixed frameworks and meaning. As architecture embraces construction innovations from mass timberwood construction to 3D printing, perhaps such emergent architectural forms will lend new language to the spiritual dimensions of human existence. To reiterate Guardini, we belong to the future. We have to formulate the nascent. The design of St. Mark's Episcopal Church in Austin, Texas, is one such formulation of the nascent. Currently in the schematic design phase, the new church building is being designed by San Antonio architecture firm Overland Partners and expected to break ground in 2026. Rather than beginning with the pragmatic drivers that determine much of today's architecture, the new design began with a text document written by both architect and priest. This working document is called St. Mark's Pilgrim Path. We present a distilled version of the document, written from the perspective of a person encountering the church for the first time. In parallel with the text, this Pilgrim Path encounters art and architectural precedent across time and place. In recalling this canon, the design seeks legibility within the Christian art historical tradition, and yet the design also embraces innovative technology as a means to encounter afresh the ancient things of Christian worship. Tradition innovation describes our larger architectural vision, using novel technology to create a liturgical worship space. This will be the first 3D printed church in the world. The unique capabilities of 3D printing, particularly ease of setup, shortened timelines, and lowered costs by square foot, lends new possibilities to the architectural process. Further, a new language of organic form emerges, both unique to the 3D print process and free from the constraints of traditional building techniques, such as poured-in-place concrete. As the emergent terrain of 3D printing is in its nascent stages, this project continues to press forward into new territory and can be understood as an enactment of pilgrimage, in both its spatial and spiritual implications. A pilgrimage implies an ever-evolving horizon line, not merely as a change of scenery, but ultimately a change of heart and perspective. We invite you to join us on St. Mark's Pilgrim Path.
I am meandering in middle age, straining to hear if there is any music underneath the noise of a secular age. And I find amidst the unkept wildness of these woods, if not music, at least a potent silence. The first threshold of this pilgrimage is to cross over from the busyness of the city to this refuge of peaceful forest escape, which is to say I come here first not so much as a seeking toward, but as a running from. But now that I'm here, standing where the trailhead meets the parking lot, my attention is pulled towards a set of buildings rendered in curvilinear concrete, glass, and wood. Indeed, I notice the variety of smaller buildings are themselves in a way gazing upon, their concrete walls almost melting toward a magnificent soaring centerpiece. I've crossed a second threshold already. Call it genuine curiosity. This building, the nave, sits harmoniously in the trees, many branches of which in their own subtle way also gesture towards it. It is organic in shape, but perfect in balance, like a dove in her nest. Its walls are layered like the geology of the limestone escarpment beneath me, yet undulating as if they have been shaped by floodwaters over millennia. It's a building that looks both natural and alien. This building pulls my attention towards its own great mystery, which at this stage it refuses to further define, even if it is obviously the ultimate destination of the path. Conspicuously absent is any grand emblazoned cross of a Christendom era gone by, the appearance of which would have sent me fleeing back to the wild woods. Instead, a bell tower in the shape of a giant rock cairn marks this more humbly as a place of ancient vertical encounter. Motivated by the destination in sight, I take my first forward steps along a funneled path that leads me into a garden enclosed by low-sitting walls and archways. From the parking lot, one just gets glimpses over and under these walls, windows offering glimpses from one world into another. In this garden, seeds are planted in the hearts of pilgrims. It is a womb. It is a place for invisible and mysterious growth. My open-ended curiosity grows now into focused attention. The garden landscaping evidences a partnership between man and the earth. The scattered tables, chairs, and benches suggest also that here is where strangers become friends. Relationship is something else that grows here, as in a perfect paradise. Here's another threshold. Finding companions appears to be part of what the path prescribes. Emboldened by friendship, I walk now through the intimidatingly large doors. The narthex ceilings beyond the doors sink low, compressing my soul down like a spring, and the tight-ribbed walls feel like the inside of the ribs of a great fish. The path by now has literally required me to turn my body to cross this latest threshold. I walked due west from the parking lot through the garden, around the backside of the bell tower, and have now turned completely around due east to enter into the space. The shape of the pilgrim's path is pulling me centripetally into an ever-deepening mystery. The long, bowed-out rear western wall to my left has clear floor-to-ceiling plate glass, which is to say, inside we remain connected to the beauty of the natural world, but its function has now changed. It is now framed with intention. Nature is no longer beautiful as an end in itself, but it has been preparing me for something else. As I pass through the end of this wormhole, this looking glass of a narthex, at the precise threshold into the nave proper is a large circular baptismal font in the floor. The path already turned me around physically to arrive here, so that here I can enact a turning around spiritually. It is another womb. The seeds planted in the garden here reach full term. The water in the font is flowing water, living water. The font is glimmering in highly decorated mosaic. I am born again, emerging from the water to what sound like the singing voices of angels, the robed choir from the loft exactly above me. The low ceiling ends at the font, beyond which the compressed coil of my soul springs vertically along with my upward gaze. The entire room before me is circular in shape. The roof is domed, and the space has a reaching towards heaven quality about it, accomplished by a series of complex, convex pillars that grow along both sides of the outer circle's edge, which twist halfway up and then bow themselves toward the altar like sheaths of wheat. Between the wheat stalk pillars are 30-foot towers of stained glass, which themselves reach up towards the dome, that cooperate with the clear clerestory domed windows and floated roof lines to flood the interior space with diffuse and reverent light. I am inside a prism, an unchanging shape that refracts God's presence with a different nuance according to various exterior conditions. The pews, I notice, are arranged in an unusual pattern. There is a central processional aisle, the path, but to either side the pews are arranged in a fanned pattern, tilted on each side about 30 degrees on their axis, each side oriented toward the front, so that within my own seated field of vision, there is a never-ending dance of eye contact between myself, the altar ahead, and the fellow pilgrims across the aisle. And sitting here, kneeling, standing, singing, listening, praying, praising, confessing, offering, the path becomes especially non-linear. But through each action, I sense a deepening. The processional path leads not to some terrifying confrontation with a tyrannical king's throne, but instead to a meal to be shared with God and friends. The path leads to a stone altar, which is in the shape of a perfect cube. Rippled curtains of concrete are pulled back to reveal this holy of holies. The platform is slightly raised and is itself a perfect circle, an elevated sphere within a sphere. Behind the altar, the east wall shows a giant crack of clear glass. The curved apse is fractured down the center into two pieces, like the bread that I watched the priest break. In the breaking, I recognize this transcendence, this higher power, this God that I have been chasing, is named Jesus Christ. Kneeling to receive communion, I first look up. This sphere glows from an oculus above, which makes it feel like this altar lies precisely at some special interstellar axis, some vertical line bisecting the cosmos, an umbilical cord sending nourishment from heaven to here. Having received new strength, new nourishment, I am centrifugally launched back into the world. I spill back into the garden to bask in the afterglow of communion. And though it is the same garden through which I entered in, my transformed eyes now notice details that I missed before. The low walls and archways are actually burial niches for the faithful departed. I linger here in the garden for encounters with the risen Christ, Eucharistically buried in the stomachs of brothers and sisters and resurrecting all the time to the brims of their bodies. I leave to take that short hike in the woods after all, but the woods are now charged for me with the grandeur of the one through whom all things were made in the beginning. I get in my car. I return to the world to be the hands and feet of the Christ that I have met here. But I will be back.
Thank you for joining us on this pilgrimage. The design of St. Mark's Episcopal is an ongoing process, and much like a pilgrimage, consists of a wide company of pilgrims. We do not travel alone. We are accompanied by many who have gone before us, their work and convictions having illuminated the ineffable things of their time. As this design process continues to unfold into new territories, we are reminded that our ends are informed by our beginnings. And so we end this presentation where we began with this quote. We belong to the future. We must put ourselves into it, each one at his station. We must not plant ourselves against the new and attempt to retain a beautiful world, one that must perish. Nor must we try to build with creative fantasy a new one that claims to be immune to the ravages of becoming. We have to formulate the nascent. Thank you.